Thank you for everyone that's running at this table. I'm going to be very specific about my answers having to do with this particular question. Our current appointed alderman mentioned that there's some workshops to appeal tax assessments. For everyone that's running at this table, I'm going to be very specific about my answers. Our tax assessments. This particular I want to know question. How can we appeal our current appointed alderman mentioned that there's some workshops to appeal tax assessments for everyone that's running at this table. I'm going to be very specific about my answers. Have 35 years of our communities in debt. We cannot have any of the benefits that are associated with those tax workshops to appeal tax districts. I'm talking about specifically the red light, the red line extension that was recently voted on. We're going to be on the hook for any of the benefits that are associated with those tax proposals which comes to this. I think specifically not the red annual tax increases. This is another thing that we're going to be on the hook for any of it's wrong. Every year should be voted on differently. You should fund it taxpayers every year automatically. That's wrong, and that will stop tax. I would be an advocate of another help taxpayers, not to hurt them. We think it's wrong, and other things that are burdening our communities and our families. We deserve better, and we're going to get something better with this automatic. That's wrong, and that will stop tax. I would be an advocate of another help taxpayers, not to hurt them. We think it's wrong, and other things that are burdening our communities and our families. We deserve better, and we're going to get something better with this. That's wrong, and that will stop tax. I would be an advocate of another help taxpayers, not to hurt them. We think it's wrong, and other.
Up here you have all seven of us. Everybody's a great person. They're trying to do the right thing. For the first time ever in history in the 11th Ward, you have a Chicago firefighter running for alderman. You have 2 teachers running for alderman. You have 2 Hispanics running for alderman. You have 1 Italian running for alderman. You have a socialist running for alderman. You have 3 women running for alderman. This is diversity. And you have me, a Ukrainian American from Euro-Asia, which is both Europe and Asia running. And now the question about taxes. I got a plan. Don't raise taxes. Find other sources. If you work on it, you'll find a solution. It's terrible because I run into so many people, lifelong residents of the 11th Ward, who are almost in tears with the increase of just the second installment on their tax bills. Some of them went up $1,800, $2,000. They cannot afford to live in the 11th Ward anymore. That's what they're telling me. We have to find other sources of revenue. They're out there. One of the things which somebody proposed to me is, hey, what about, there's 2 airports in Chicago, 36 million people from out of Illinois fly in there. What about giving them $1, charge them just $1. And with that $1, that will generate $36 million. There are many solutions.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Don. I agree with Steve. Why do we keep raising taxes? That's like literally the #1 option we go to when they need more revenue. They don't look at cost efficiencies. They don't talk about maintaining our tax base, which is businesses and homeowners. Crime is a big issue of driving people out of this city. The less people that we have paying taxes in the city, it just leaves more for the rest of us to cover. That's what's ending up happening. If more businesses leave, more homeowners leave, where are we going to be at then? And it's not just the taxes. I mean, your utilities are going up, the food costs are going up. There's a lot of factors there, and government does play a part in this. Don't make it seem like it's like greedy landlords or something. When you raise your taxes to someone to maintain that, you have to raise your rents. And that's just the common sense if you're a landlord or a homeowner. I say, let's think of other ideas. There has to be better solutions to this. There's a lot of money sitting out there. There's TIF money sitting in some fund somewhere else that's not being utilized. There's government assistance monies that's sitting in a pot, and our taxes are still going up. So.
Next question, candidates. What is your position on residential development in the 11th Ward in regard to density and rezoning? You all have 90 seconds each to respond. Vita, please start.
As I said, I'm a lifelong resident of the 11th Ward and have seen million-dollar homes next to 100-year-old buildings, which cause both property value and taxes to rise. I propose we pass a law to limit the increase of property tax assessment and property tax bill to 1% per year. We should encourage the construction of quality housing that can be affordable by working families in acquiring low interest rate and down payment incentives from the Illinois Housing Department Authority.
Nicole?
Can you give me the question just one more time?
Absolutely. What is your position on residential development in the 11th Ward in regard to density and rezoning?
I believe that there's still a lot of room for development in this ward. I hear a lot from constituents that we need to revitalize our commercial corridors, like the Halsted Street corridor, and I don't disagree. And part of what we need to do that is have a balanced approach to density, because if we don't have enough density to attract some of these businesses and support businesses opening, we're going to remain where we are today. With respect to density in general, with the transit-oriented design rules that we have and the equitable transit-oriented development that we passed this last year, it includes incentives for developers to increase the number of units nearby within a half mile of high density transit. The 11th Ward is full of this. We are so close and we're so blessed with the transit systems that we have and access that it is encouraging more people to not use cars. So increasing the number of units and affordability. With the ETOD, affordability is addressed as well. 20% of any development that has 10 or more units is required to have 20% affordable units. And with that, they also reduce the number of parking spaces, which is also better for our environment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My answer is going to be different than I think most of the people on this table. What I hear is lots of solutions to affordable housing in terms of rental units. I propose helping more and more of our ward with affordable ownership. There's too much attention, in my opinion, given to either public housing or rental affordable housing. What I think we need to move in a direction, and we need to give space to and provide an alderman that has a vision and an alderman that wants to make their communities better, is to think a little bit higher than that. And we need to start developing programs in which we can help people with affordable ownership. When somebody owns their home, when they have ownership of their property, it's more likely that they're going to be more of a part of their community. And it just feels better. It's part of the American dream to own your own home. And I think we should make that possible. And with me as your alderman, we will focus on affordable ownership.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. There's a lot of empty lots in the 11th Ward, and the community must have an input of what's going on. This is a tough time for the 11th Ward because there's a battle going on. There's a battle going on between the lobbyists, the big donors, and the special interests versus the people of the 11th Ward. There's a lot of money coming into this race, and they want, you cannot represent both the lobbyists and special interests and the people of the 11th Ward. You just cannot. So while I'm here today, I would ask all the candidates to return any money that you have received from big donors, lobbyists, or special interests, and prove that you are for the people of the 11th Ward. And with regards to zoning, it's the people. The people must have the final say.
I think you have to look at it by block. We have such a diverse in our buildings. We have 3 flats, 4 flats, we have 6 flats, big battleship buildings. We have all sorts of development. If you have a row of family homes and the developer wants to come in and do a 3 flat, I would disagree. I would say no, probably that, as long as if the residents are behind it. Depends what the residents want at the end of the day for that block. So every block we have to treat differently. Some blocks, commercial areas, you might be able to go a little higher because you got the bus route or near transportation. But I don't think you could just paint one thing for the whole ward. I think it's going to be a case by case basis. And depending on what the neighbors and the community want in that area. Thank you.
Next question, candidates. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Tony.
That's a great question, Kim. Great question. Residential development in the 11th ward in regards to density and rezoning. We're talking about rezoning. I've had 10 of my friends leave the city because of the crime. The crime is so high. We're being terrorized on our streets with criminals. There's fear. Everybody has fear. I was parking my car and walking in here with a little fear. I've been to police for 30 years. Okay. So we need to talk about how we're going to reduce crime to keep our families here. And of course, community engagement. We need to give the power back to the people. We need to engage with community commissions and have them have a voice on this planning, especially when it's going to impact them in their areas. A new development going on, if you live near McGuane Park, or you live near Taylor Lauritsen, or Ping Tom, if there's a new development, and we talk about proximity. Proximity to what? Who's taking the L today with how much crime is on the L and violence on the L? Who's taking it? Who's jumping on the CTA bus? Yeah, who's not afraid? Who's not fearful? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I've been to police for 30 years. The crime rates are very high on our trains. The fifth floor is mismanaging and very irresponsible leadership on the.
Luckily, I won't have to return any of my donations. They've been from individuals. Density is inarguably a good thing. It supports local business, and having a lot of rental units that are affordable make it so that middle and low income people can afford to live in our community, which is something I think we want, so that we're inclusive. I want to create a zoning advisory board that would be made up of resident representatives. This would be a formal way for developers to come bring their proposals to this board and have a discussion publicly. And what that means is that we also have the opportunity to say, how many units will be in this building? Would you do more? How much affordable housing are you committing to? Would you do more than the minimum? And what do you mean by affordable? Would you be willing to make those rental prices even more affordable? That's something that you can do if you have a board like that, and you can do it publicly to make sure that if we have a new development, residents are also getting a good deal. I also think we need to expand public housing. We're looking at a situation across the city where we're selling off and giving away land that was meant for public housing. And I think instead we need to be expanding public housing that'll expand density. I also support accessory dwelling units and allowing them throughout the city. Right now, in most of the city, you are not allowed on your own property to build another living unit and rent it out. I think we should be able to do that.
Next question. What is your perception of crime and safety in the ward? And what is your plan to address these issues? You all have 90 seconds each to respond. Rory, please start.
Thank you. I agree with Anthony. I think that people have obviously seen that with the leadership that we have with Mayor Lightfoot, and I'll say it, and with the leadership with the people that she appoints, I don't think we have strong leaders. I think we need to have better leaders that do specific things. Let me tell you what would be my proposal. We need to make sure that we bring back respect to the first responders, and we empower them to do their job effectively without putting restrictions on them so that they cannot do their job and help us. Well, there's been too much focus and not enough focus on the victims and the people that live in the 11th ward that are afraid. And I think we need to turn that around. Another thing is there's too much emphasis on accountability of police officers, and then the conversation stops. We need to have accountability for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office that is not prosecuting crimes the way they should be. And we need to have accountability to judges that are letting people out that might be violent and commit another crime. I think accountability is not only one-dimensional, and we need to start as leaders, as aldermen and alder people, making sure that we think holistically when it comes to crime and crime prevention. Lastly, I want to make sure that we empower the newly created police district councils, and I am supporting Denise McBroom, and I am supporting Maggie Finucane, and I want to work with them.
Hi, where you were sitting here today, you were in beat 914 of the 9th district. According to the Chicago Police Department stats, last year, there were 176 violent robberies right here. And that equals somebody getting robbed here in a single beat district every other day. That's the most of the entire city of Chicago last year. It's out of control. I put together a 10-point plan. Part of my plan is to have police officers walk down the sidewalks. This way they can meet the people, they can spot crime when it's there. And I also want to revamp the CAPS program. Attendance is low. I want to have it so there's better community engagement, stronger community engagement, find out what's wrong and fix it. And I also want to add, as a high school dropout, now lawyer, I want to have vocational schools. I want to provide skills in the trades with good paying jobs for kids without debt, without college debt. If you have money in your pocket, you're not going to be out there carjacking or gangbanging or robbing people. You're going to have a lot of money in your pocket. And if you're in the trades, the people you work with ain't going to let you do it because they're going to get on your butt. Check out my 10-point plan.
Actually, this is a #1 issue in this, for this ward, I believe, is crime. And I'm co-founder of the Chinatown Neighborhood Watch, the Bridgeport Neighborhood Watch. I've been out here for 7-8 years on the streets dealing with this issue. We've seen it coming. Everyone has a nice plan and what they've been doing or they plan on doing, but I've actually been out here. I've talked to victims. I've helped victims. I've helped find lost seniors reunite with their family. I've advocated for our community and I've educated them on the importance of working together with the Chicago Police Department and calling 911 and advocating for Chinese speaking officers to walk this beat, the 914 beat, because a lot of people are afraid they don't call. So I've been on the street and I've been doing it. I know the challenges that we're facing here and we are being targeted. These are not people that live in this community that are targeting each other. These are people from outside the community that are targeting this community. And I've been here, I've been to funerals, I've been on the street. As a fireman, I've responded to gunshot victims and I've reached out to their families to give them some sense of peace, which I know I can't, but just to be there with them, just to show them that people do care. I've done all the vigils for all the murder victims in the 914 beat. And that was not for me to raise my hand or put myself up there. I'm not looking for that. I was just there to bring a sense of community that we do care about each other and we will support each other and back each other up. Thank you.
Thank you. Every candidate in the aldermanic and mayoral, their #1 topic is crime. Every one of them, right? With all due respect to my opponents, I'm playing chess and everyone's playing checkers. And when it comes to crime, we need to prioritize community-oriented policing, community-based policing. That's in the form of our CAPS program. It needs to be more robust. We need to build the trust with the community. We need to work as one. We need to create block clubs and have co-aldermen on each block club that reports directly to me with our issues, concerns, and good things. And we market and advertise and we work together, building coalitions, partnerships for good, bad, and ugly. And we work on them together. Proactive policing, aggressively policing by identifying crime problems, putting missions together. Steve mentioned beat 914. Dive a little deeper in that. The parameters are LaSalle Street to Halsted, 18th to 33rd Street, Chinatown, Bridgeport, Armour Square. 1,001 index crimes. Those are high index crimes. 239 of them were on our president appointed alderman's watch. 239. And when lives are at stake, and they truly are, this is not perception. These are stats. When lives are at stake,
our public servants are stretched thin. Teachers and police officers alike are expected to be everything to everyone. Our city has continued to compromise public schools, compromise the state of the CTA and public transportation, compromise the mental health care that we have on offer. And they have continued to expect the rest of us to pick up the slack for them. Police officers responded to 41,000 mental health calls in 2019. I know what it's like to be expected to do things outside of my job description most of the time, and also be expected to do the things that I actually signed up to do. It's not safe. It's not working. And I think that the city needs to be investing in programs that are going to take some of these responsibilities off of the police department's shoulders. Social services that respond to mental health care, mental health calls, housing the homeless, better jobs programs, and running all of our city departments at full steam instead of limping along.
Thank you. For many years, I worked for the Chicago Police Department as a civilian in the CAPS program. My first deployment was here in the 21st District, as well as the 9th District. I worked and I walked these neighborhoods. I especially worked with the business owners. What I found that helped was that we all worked together and educated each other as to what we had available to us. Our police officers are totally very stretched in every which way possible. We look at them as robots instead of humans. As a mother of a police officer, it's quite concerning. I myself feel that if you have $3.6 billion to put into a red line service, then in here, 5 wards are expected to pay $2 million of that. And we are one of them. 5 wards only. Well, you know what? Where's that 21st police district that used to service Chinatown? Because I'll tell you something, it was in a better place when we had the 21st police district. Yet there was no money for it. They drew it out. Yet Chinatown generates $1 million in sales tax in 2022. In 2023, Chinatown.
My perception of crime and safety in the ward, it's not perception. We've all talked about it. Every single one of us has acknowledged it here. The reality is that we have a big challenge across the city, and we are no different here in this ward. And in particular in this beat. I live here in this beat. I experience the same things. This is a forest fire, and the police alone cannot fix this problem. The police and even the watch, which is amazing. And the watch has done so much, and we're still, what did you say, the highest crime, the highest number of robberies in beat 914 across the city?
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row. So whatever we're doing, we're banging our heads against the wall. It's not working right now. What we need is a comprehensive approach to this. And when I talk to residents about crime and safety in our ward, I invite everybody. Said, this is not something that one person can do. I get asked all the time, Alderman, what's your plan? This is not something that we can do. I can do alone. The police can do alone. The mayor can do alone. We have to come together. We have to have residents calling the police and playing an active role in this. And we also have to approach the root causes of crime, as well as expanding the Chicago Public Health Department's mental illness response system. And I hope to be able to continue to expand that work if you give me a chance to do it. Thank you.
Next question. What is your position on the proposed Near South High School and your anticipated role in this process? You all have 60 seconds each to respond to this question. Don, please start.
I'm not against it. I believe I've stated to PS and community meetings that I believe we need 2 high schools for the ever-growing South Loop and the Bridgeport Chinatown community. So you could build that school, they're going to cut us out eventually. That's what's going to happen. They're not going to provide service for a lot of the Chinese residents on this side because they refuse to include language, English learning language skills. So I believe we need a high school in the 11th ward to service the community of the children of the 11th ward. We have 6, 7 schools in our community, and we could feed a high school solely by ourselves right now. Thank you.
We're gonna, my apologies. Tony will be next.
Me?
Yes.
I strongly support the determination of the Near South High School location. It's in a high school desert. And parents need options. They need viable options for their kids to get a quality education. Who doesn't? There still needs to be community input with this, right? They have to be a part of the planning. It's going to impact them, but there can be real value, and it could be great for the economy. And again, keep our parents here. There's people leaving because they are on a high school desert and there isn't a viable option, and they're moving to areas where there are viable options. We need to keep our kids here, and we need to we definitely need to have a viable option in a Chicago public school near us. Thank you.
I support a new high school. I think it's really needed on the northern end of the ward, like a lot of the others have said. I've also seen as a teacher who worked here in the ward for 3 years, how badly we need good bilingual supports that a lot of our students are not getting, especially Chinese speaking students. There's a lot more resources for Spanish speaking students. I don't support it being built on land that belongs to the Chicago Housing Authority. I believe that we need to be expanding our public housing, and all across the city, we are getting rid of CHA land. I would work, like I said, I would have a zoning advisory board, and I think that we could work through publicly a good place to put the high school that would make lots of people happy. And I think that residents that are representatives from the Chinatown area that live and work here would be the ones who we would listen to when it comes to that.
I strongly support a high school. For decades, we've needed a high school, maybe 2. Our teens shouldn't have to travel outside of their neighborhood to get a quality high school education. Not a selective enrollment high school open to all of Chicago, but for the safety and convenience of the 11th Ward students and their families. Property taxes are high. People are leaving. The children need a place to grow into. We used to have a high school way back in the day. It was called Richards Vocational High School. It was for girls. It was located on 30th and Wallace. That high school closed down. Healy School expanded. We never did get another high school other than Tilden that continues to sit in the 11th Ward. What I see is that we are dire need, and we pay enough taxes that we should be able to have had a high school here in the 11th Ward.
I am in full support of the proposed Near South High School. I've played an active role in advocating for that school to be created, working with Alderwoman Pat Dowell to secure funding from a TIF perspective to ensure that land is made available and that the CHA is made whole. There's been enough demand for a high school for decades now. How many people have high school or have elementary school kids in the room here today? Anybody? A few. So this is going to be really interesting for you because 5 years ago, I was in your position. The community has needed a high school. There's no question about that. And my role and the role that I'm already playing today is to hold accountable CHA and CPS to make sure that our community is involved in the planning, which they have been in the design process. And absolutely, we will have all of the services that we need, especially bilingual programs. Thank you.
I am a parent. I'll raise my hand on that one. I want the best things, just like the people in Canaryville and Bridgeport and Armour Square and McKinley Park and all of our ward. I'm also a teacher, and I know what it takes to have a fundamentally sound education that's in high school. I will say that if you, I'm referring to the current alderman here, have been a part of the process. I was at the last meeting that they had for this. It was a town hall. It was not very inclusive at all. People talked at us and we didn't get an opportunity to be heard. I think the process should be inclusive. I think the process should allow for us to have an opinion on what facilities we want. They talked about academic models and they didn't answer the question as to what were some of the options. I am for the high school at the current position. I think that the state money should not be taken away by the state representative that has threatened that. And I do believe that we should have a partnership with the Discovery Partner Institute right next door with our CPS students so they can benefit from cooperative partnerships nearby, including an expansion of the trade school.
I'm one of 9 children, born to immigrant parents who didn't speak English, yet worked hard to raise their large family. I started my adult life as a high school dropout. And with a few breaks, I went back, got my GED, finished college, graduated from law school, and passed the Illinois bar. I was also chairman of the Education Funding Advisory Board for the state of Illinois. I strongly believe that there should be a high school in the 11th ward. And with CPS, what they're doing is they are dictating to the community. They're not really taking any input of what you want, what the community wants. They're telling you what you're going to have, take it, just take it or leave it. That will never happen when I'm alderman.
Audience members, another reminder that if you do have audience submitted questions, you have an index card on your seat and you may write your question down there and pass it to staff that will be roaming around the room. Candidates, now we will be moving on to yes/no questions, and these questions are directed to all the candidates. I will read the question and give you a few seconds to process. Then you will hold up a green card for yes or a red card for no. You may also abstain by not holding a card. Do you need a new sheet? Green means yes. Red means no. If you choose to abstain, you simply do not hold up any card. Next question. Every year, the city of Chicago allocates $1.5 million of menu money to each of the aldermen to spend at their discretion on capital improvements, including infrastructure repairs and other updates within their ward. Will you post your menu money decisions publicly on your website? Next question. This menu money system is considered controversial because some aldermen have been known to grant money to their friends rather than spend the funds on the necessities of the ward. 6 wards in Chicago, all located in the north side, divide up this money through a participatory budgeting system, where ward residents, regardless of citizenship status, vote on which projects the money should be allocated towards. Will you implement a participatory budgeting process? Next question. SSA, Special Service Area, is an additional resource to support cleaning, beautification, and other services in the ward. Do you support the use of SSA as a community development tool? Next question. TIF is a financing tool to support urban development. When an area is included in a TIF zone, the current year property tax for that area is set as a baseline. And as property values increase in the future, the increased portion in property tax above this baseline can be used to fund reconstruction projects in that area. Do you support TIF as a community development tool? Candidates, now we will move on to the pre-selected questions. Candidates will be going in order of ballot number in groups of 3. To ensure fairness, we will rotate the order in which the candidates respond. The next question is for Tony, Ambria, and Vida. Given a potential recession, how will you help union and non-union workers? You have 90 seconds each to respond to this question. Tony, please start.
I would have regular meetings with everyone involved, union, non-union. We would work with unions and the people that that are covered under their unions. And we would make sure that everybody, depending on taxes too, sometimes there's tax increases when you're dealing with union workers. And if we need to, at times, there's layoffs, there's shortages, and we need to do our best we can to make sure that people aren't laid off so that they can put meals on their table for their families. And sometimes that comes with a tax increase, correct? Which I would support in that case, but I would fight as hard as I could and exhaust every option possible with meaningful engagement with those affected, those impacted, and we would find a way to produce revenue that would help our union and non-union workers the best we can, support their families, and have the best quality of life that they can. Thank you.
I believe that every worker deserves a union. I would be very supportive of having labor peace agreements for any new development, which means that the developer would be agreeing to remain neutral in the case of unionization efforts and anything of the sort. I also believe that the city needs to stop contracting out to people who are not unionized to avoid having to pay high wages and benefits to union workers who are working for the city. In the ward office, like I have on the campaign trail and in my past before that, I would be very supportive of any worker drives for unionization or any organizing in their workplace where they're trying to improve conditions for themselves and their coworkers. You know, when the Teamster, Amazon unionization effort comes, and it is coming, I will be happy to support workers, know who they are, know their names, know their families' names, make the ward office a resource for them, show up to picket lines, and speak publicly in support of union efforts happening in our ward and across the city. I think unions make our society better, and they need our full support, and they need to be expanded, and more people need to be joining them.
I come from a family of union. My father worked for the railroad, for 2 railroads actually, when I was introduced to unions and what actually unions can do for a family. And there's a lot of businesses that can definitely use the backing of a union. And I believe for the strength of a business and for the strength of our communities, that we should definitely support that. There's a lot of workers out there that are suffering in work conditions, and then they go home and they're still not being paid equitably, and it's just the wrong thing to do. So therefore, my answer to this is yes. Do I support unions? Of course.
This next question is for Nicole, Roy, and Steve. Traffic and transit are a concern for many residents of the 11th Ward. What are your priorities to address this? You each have 90 seconds to respond. Nicole, you may start.
I pretty much have this conversation 4 times a week with constituents. And as I'm out knocking on doors and talking to people about what their biggest concerns are, I can give them to you in order, right? Crime and safety, rats, and how fast people are driving down our streets. The number of accidents that have happened, the number of people who have been injured is out of control. And one of the things that we've been doing in my tenure since I've been in office is putting in speed bumps, working with community members to talk about what solutions make sense. Lobbying for speed cameras by not 1, but 2 parks. Right by McClellan Elementary School, this time last year, a parent was hit by a vehicle. Thankfully, she survived. And it took the better part of about 6 months in order to lobby CDOT to get these cameras. And we were the first ones to get one on a non-main street because we asked for this to be on Wallace, not 35th, where CDOT wanted to put it. My concerns about traffic also are for bike lanes. We need protected bike lanes in this ward and across this city to make it safer for everybody to ride. My 15-year-old son rides his bike everywhere. I have a real concern about this for everybody's safety. And we also have to have cooperation from the driving public. Thank you.
Yes. Speaking of bike lanes, I am considering this, but I would like to say what the alternative to that is. Recently, we've seen stories of businesses that have negatively been affected when you close off parking. So you got to be very careful when you do an extension or you work with the amount of area that you would restrict businesses from having their clients and from customers parking there. So I would ask that we all keep that in mind. I also heard about speed cameras. I don't want to be an alderman that over tickets us, that over boots us. We got to stop that practice. You can't go after taxpayers. You can't go after residents. You can't go after the people. We're hurting. We can't be having any more unreasonable punishment of taxpayers with ticketing or booting, et cetera. And what I'll lastly say is that the CTA needs to have security that is not private. Our aldermen in the city council have approved private firms to do the security. I think we have the capacity to do it within our public safety office, whether it be with technology or with uniformed police officers or with undercover police officers. But I've been and I ride the CTA just like the people that raise their hands. I ride the red line, I ride the orange line, and I go all the way to and from various places using the CTA. So as a user, I definitely can empathize with the people that use public transit. And I'd like to say that they're a chamber of commerce.
I think I can safely say that I am the only candidate that campaigns on a bicycle. Unless anybody else, please raise your hand. But you probably see me bicycling a lot in the summertime. I'm the guy that bicycles around here. I go to the lake. I like to fish. I have a fishing pole on the back of my bicycle with a fishing net. So you're always seeing me driving through the neighborhood with a fishing pole and a fishing net. I believe these light signals, traffic signals, need to be updated in a sequence that is computer generated where they change depending on the traffic. The technology is out there. We should explore it and look at it. And I am a card carrying member of public transportation. I use that often.
This next question is for Don, Tony, and Ambria. As the Chicago Department of Planning and Development creates a master plan for the city, what is your vision for parks and the preservation of green spaces during your term? You each have 90 seconds to respond. Don, please start.
It's a very difficult question because there's not that much green space to begin with. I mean, Bridgeport is one of the oldest communities in the city of Chicago, and it's almost like any available space that we could build on, we've already have. And it's that's why it's been such a dilemma, especially with the high school, just trying to think of a location. I think we have to get rid of some of these parking lots. I think Sox Park, it's only half, 80 games a year or something like that. And there's plenty of space over there. I think people like the idea of dog parks. I mean, bring those throughout the neighborhood. Steve actually told me that there's not one dog park in the 11th Ward.
Yes, and part of my thing is to put a dog park, build a dog park in the 11th Ward. Come on, folks. Come on, give me a hand.
But yeah, of course, you want people to have a place where they could play and their children could go gather and play sports. And I mean, I used to play softball at McWayne, basketball at McWayne. So the parks are a big part of it. But we have more modern, updated facilities. I mean, we have some old facilities in this in our 11th Ward, and I think we need newer facilities. Thank you.
Tony?
Great question, Kim. I was basically born and raised in the Park District. We have wonderful parks. We have Palmisano Park that was built. That's amazing. You want to get outdoors, just lose yourself there. Put a line in the water, right? Nice fishing hole. And you really do lose yourself. You decompress, right? We need to spend some time in our parks. We need to get the kids, the programming back in our parks and a robust programming. We need to increase the size of the classes. We need to bring gym shows back. They used to be a big deal when I was a kid. There would be 200 people packed in the gym just to see the gym show, to see us tumble, to see us play basketball. I mean, they were my second parents, right? So we need to really, really focus on our parks. But another big deal, getting back to the parks, and I hate to come back to crime, but our kids, I have a 17 and 16-year-old. They have to text their mom when they go 8 doors down when they get there. I'm sure some of you are in the same boat, some of you parents, and we worry because of the violence, right? And I'm concerned with the violence on a geofenced area of the 11th Ward, okay? That's what I'm concerned with. That's what I'm going to focus in. That's what I'm qualified to do. Thank you.
We have a lot of beautiful green spaces in the ward. And I think one thing that we need to do is connect them, especially all along the river. There are separate pockets where there's paths, but they don't connect to each other. And I could envision having, an actual path that extends from, one side of the ward all the way to the other up to Ping Tom Park. And there also need to be pedestrian bridges that go across the river and allow people to access different sides of the river where there are different parks, because as land continues to be developed, there will continue to be a requirement that even private entities have to put some kind of park along the river. I also support bringing a dog park to the 11th Ward, but I also want to talk about the Parks Department and staffing. Just like with every other city department, we are terrible at hiring people despite having tons of vacancies. I was told by a park supervisor that I talked to that there are 8 people that take care of all the landscaping at all of the parks all across the southwest side. That's ridiculous. It used to be a team of 15. It's whittled down to 8. And she said, I've had people apply and they don't get a call back. It's the same with the libraries. I apply, I don't get a call back. We need to make sure that it's staffed, because if we're going to keep growing our parks like I think we should, we need to make sure that we're taking care of them and that they continue to be a nice place for us to go. I also, like a lot of people at this table, support having sports. A lot of our schools don't really offer sports to kids, and we need to use our parks for that.
This next question is for Vida, Nicole, and Froy. Chinatown, Bridgeport, and McKinley Park have a lot of industrial land. What will you do to help mitigate the environmental and public health harms on residents? You each have 90 seconds to respond. Vita?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Absolutely. I will repeat the question. Chinatown, Bridgeport, and McKinley Park have a lot of industrial land. What will you do to help mitigate the environmental and public health harms on residents? You each have 90 seconds to respond. Vita?
First of all, we need to hold the businesses accountable for how they remove their debris. And a lot of them just take the shortcuts. We have a lot of dumping ground is what we have. We do, and it's sad to say, people know it. They know where to dump. And those are places that we can actually utilize and put businesses, grow business. The inspections, there are no inspections. Those also are very far and few for businesses. They should be held accountable. And there should be some fines, heavy fines for things of this nature.
I think what we need to do from this perspective with so much of our ward being in industrial areas, and we have seen a burgeoning of housing developments in all of these areas that used to be industrial. So as we're converting those, we still also have the Stockyards Industrial District, and we're continuing to make things here. What we need to do is hold people accountable, work with the environmental agencies to make sure that inspections are taking place on a regular basis, that information is being disclosed, and that complaints and worries and concerns from constituents and residents are taken seriously. I've struggled with at least one or two constituents that have called regarding suspicions that they have about a particular area, and getting the research done for that with other agencies can be very taxing. I think we have to absolutely change that. I'm all for transparency in looking at testing as well as providing information. And when constituents are looking for more information and wanting to have a voice in this, I think we have to listen. And I think we also have to hold businesses accountable because we all have to live here. Thank you.
Yes, I think what you value, you put your money in. I was very disappointed in the last budget. We did not value in the city council a specific department of the environment. If we had a specific department of the environment, we would be able to do much more to these problems, but we did not take that decision. With me as your alderman, we will bring back that department of the environment. Another thing that's very important, all the industrial corridors and the commercial corridors, including Halsted and 35th Street, 31st Street, and more. We need to make sure that we help those small businesses have the support that they need to be able to either rezone or help them with improvements to their current facades or whatever it is that they need. We have not empowered small businesses. With me as your alderman, you will have a friend that will advocate for dedicated chambers of commerce, which we could pull together as strong, not only businesses, but the consumers need choices. 11th Ward consumers and residents do not want to go far to get whatever it is that they need. We need to make sure we're more imaginative and we help small businesses and by way of consumers doing the same thing. Last thing that I'll say is we're punishing small businesses with too many taxes. It's the economy, and we have to find a better way to be able to appeal the process and to be able to have businesses that feel comfortable investing in our community. Thank you.
This next question is for Steve, Don, and Tony. How do you plan to address problems of racism and build a welcoming and inclusive ward? You each have 90 seconds to answer this question. Steve, please start.
The 11th Ward is the most diverse, one of the most diverse wards in all of Chicago. You have Armour Square, you have Bridgeport, you have Chinatown, Canaryville, and McKinley Park. I want to unite all these neighborhoods and all the people of the 11th Ward. My mother spoke 7 different languages: Italian, French, Polish, Lithuanian, and several other languages. My goal through my upbringing is to unite, not to divide. And I believe I'm the perfect candidate to do that.
I feel like
Basically, I took my time. Basically, in a nutshell, I want the 11th ward to be the best ward in Chicago, with everybody, all the people in all the neighborhoods to have one strong voice.
it was worth it. It was worth it. That was worth it. You know what? I've been welcomed in this community. I didn't go to school here growing up, but I had always had family here. And I have a stake in all the neighborhoods in this community. I have history in Chinatown. I live in Armour. I work as a firefighter at 35th and Low, which represents Bridgeport and Chinatown. Bridgeport and Canaryville, sorry. I have family in McKinley. So I feel I could be that bridge to the rest of the community because I live it. Everything I do, pretty much 90% of my time, 95% of my time, I spend here. Literally, I eat, sleep, work, play, everything. My wife, her family's from the community too. She has a Hispanic heritage. Her mom was a Mexican immigrant. So we've lived it. Our kids are multicultural. She's on the local school council, the president of James Ward School, and she's advocating not only for our children, but all the children in the schools, because it affects us. We're a part of the community. Our neighbors, our kids, we're a part of the community, and we're here to support each other. And I think we just got to get involved, be engaged, work together, and I think we can build a better tomorrow.
It started at a very young age for me. I'd like to introduce you to my dad, Gasper Sheravino. He taught him and my mother, who's watching. She's looking down on us. She taught at a very young age that everyone was created equal. I learned that at a very, very young age. I actually hung in my teen years. I hung here in Chinatown on 24th Street. I played basketball with many of the young men that are in here today. I see some familiar faces in Bobby Choi and Doug Wu and Horst Huber. Rest in peace, Horst. These were very dear friends of mine, lifelong friends through basketball. And I'll lean on my coaching for this, right? You work toward a common goal. It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian. At the end of the day, you mesh everything together. You embrace our differences, our cultural differences. And you know what? It's pretty fun to learn about other cultures, to learn in the Italian community to make wine. And my wife is Hispanic, and I've learned how to make a tamale, and they're pretty damn good. So we need to embrace it. We need to come together on a common goal, work toward them common goals together, and break down, the barriers need to be broken down so that we could reach those common goals. And they're very simple. We all have families. We want the best for our families. We want the best for our children. We want the best educations. We're all involved in churches or some kind of congregation with that Christianity piece, right? It's not real hard.
This next question is for Ambria, Vida, and Nicole. What is your plan to bring about more economic development to the ward? You each have 90 seconds to respond. Ambria, you may start.
Yeah, I think, is it? Yeah. I think that the ward office should be a resource, not just to provide information for applying to grants, but bringing together a group of people who either own small businesses or have a good proposal for one and writing those grants together, securing those funds together, finding the locations, these empty storefronts that a lot of owners are sitting on, really reaching out and trying to do the work of convincing them to rent out the space. Securing a contractor together so that the development can be done all as one project. And, it's hard to secure a contractor to just develop one little storefront. So I think that that's something that we can be collaborating on together to not only, bring economic development, but bring economic development in collaboration so that it's the kind we want. Through the zoning advisory board and participatory democratic bodies that we have built up in the ward. I think we could also go about working together to select the businesses that we decide to collaborate with. I want the ward office to be a welcoming place that nurtures and grows the community.
As a business owner myself and a resident of Bridgeport, I find that there's no rhyme or reason for a lot of our, let's say, areas of business. There's, it should be as like on Halsted Street. I remember back in the day when we would get up on Saturday mornings and girls would get ready for date night. They would make their way up Halsted Street and they would find their outfits for the evening for their date night. Nowadays, you can't walk down Halsted Street. What for? I mean, what are you going to do? Get robbed? There's nothing for you to look at. There's nothing for you to see. It's a sad situation. So my proposal for Chinatown, let's say, I would propose we create a Chinatown business district that would retain any increase in sales tax revenue generated in Chinatown to be used for economic development within Chinatown only. In 2022, Chinatown Business District generated $1 million in sales tax. In 2023, same area generated $1.5 million in sales taxes. The additional $500,000 would be earmarked for only improvement in Chinatown for the security and infrastructure of tourism and marketing. Chinatown is creating the revenue. Why shouldn't it be reinvested into Chinatown?
What we're already doing in the 11th Ward under my administration is working together with the city agencies to ensure that every business that has a need and an interest in accessing resources from the city in terms of grants, small business improvement funds, is informed of it. So one of the things that we're doing very soon is pulling together a workshop for our businesses to understand what is available, to invite people who are interested in being entrepreneurs. I agree with my opponents over here about the availability of space and the high rents. That's one of the things that I think we have to work with property owners on as well. Ensuring that we're maximizing the resources that are available is going to be key to this so that we're not leaving money on the table. So with that, I would like to also share with you that one of the things that I've done since I've been in office is to help ensure that the Remova project gets completed. It was greenlit back in 2019. And as we know, prices have gone up, costs are more expensive, and we had to go and secure an additional $2.2 million to make sure that that gets completed. And that will be one of the biggest engines to spur development on the Halsted Street corridor. In addition, since I've been in office, the ward has received over $680,000 in grant funds from the Chicago Recovery Plan.
This next question is for Roy, Steve, and Don. How do you plan on working with the Chicago Police Department and the newly created police district councils to comply with the consent decree? You each have 90 seconds to respond. Roy, you may start.
Thank you for asking that question. I was cut off last time. I was trying to explain this. We have candidates that are running for this office. I particularly am in strong support of two women. One of them is Denise McBroom, and the other is Maggie Finnecane. And I believe they have a record of accomplishment. I want to work hand in hand with these council districts. I think it presents an opportunity for us as civilians to be able to have input into the trust, into the training, into things that we can offer so that we can have the community policing, the CAPS programs that are necessary. I believe that we need to make sure that when it comes to this police council district, it's not just only an attack on police officers. That is not productive. That is not giving us results. We need to have accountability. But as I said, we need to have a holistic accountability across the board. I think Kim Fox has done a terrible job of prosecuting in this county. I would advocate that we look for solutions to hold prosecutors accountable, and we look for solutions to hold judges accountable that are not doing their jobs. And so in short, I'd like to say that we need to also empower our youth so they're able to have productive things to do at the parks, at the schools, and we can have a relationship which is centered around great dialogue.
A consent decree is a federal law that must be followed. There are no exceptions. What I plan on doing is pulling both the police department and this police district council together and work on solutions, because they're at opposite. They could be at times at opposite ends depending on who's elected. And it's very important, folks, for you to look into who is running for this police board and thoroughly investigate them. Hopefully there could be a forum. I think everybody would agree, a forum for all those candidates, because this is extremely important that we find out who these people are, their background, and what they plan on doing to reduce crime. So once these groups are together, as alderman, I will pull them together, meet with them and saying, how do we work together to stop crime? And we must follow the law.
I've been working with the 9th District Police Department for many years now. From all the different, Don Jerome is the current commander, and at every level. I mean, we look at these officers as human beings. They've been demonized ruthlessly for the last 3 years, and their ranks have dropped tremendously. 2,000 from the 2 years ago prior to COVID. There's only so many resources go around, and there's nobody taking the job. There's nobody even signing up for this job. So we're stretched very thin citywide on this. So continue to work with the existing police is very key. Having the right people in the right position to succeed. And we've worked with the 9th District along with the CAP's office to build that outreach to the community, that they are still here, they still care, they still respond, and they'll do what is needed to protect our community.
Before we move on to my closing question, I want to extend another invitation and reminder to audience members that if you do have a question for the candidates, please write it down and pass it to staff who is circulating the room. This closing question is for all the candidates. You each have 60 seconds to respond. What makes you the best candidate for the job? What differentiates you? We'll start with Tony.
As you all know, some of you may know, some of you don't. Maybe you're following me. I have nearly 3 decades as an active Chicago policeman. Our biggest problem is crime. I have solutions, real solutions that there are studies on, that are proven solutions that we need to restore. We need to restore beat integrity. We need to have our officers on their beats and keep them there so they're familiar with the people that they serve and protect, and the people that they serve and protect are familiar with them. And what I mean is, if it's dusk and there's a light that's usually on and it's off, hey, Joe, your light is off. Did you want it off? Was that intentional? Oh, no, I forgot it. Let me put it back on. That's a big deterrence for the bad guy, right? I talked to thousands of people along this journey that we call a campaign. Thank you.
I am running to make a real progressive change on city council and here in our local community. I know what it's like to struggle to make ends meet, to have my family rely on the CTA. I'm absolutely dedicated to protecting and expanding the public sector. So that means that the work that the city departments do. And I want to create real formal democratic processes, which people who are residents of the ward can use to have input on how the budget is used in the ward, on the development decisions that are made, the proposals that are made for using TIF funding, if people have brought up, which is a very corrupt system, but I support it if it's doing what it's meant to do. You know, I'm the only progressive candidate that is dedicated to those ideals. And I think I'm a unique choice in a field of people that I have a lot of respect for. But I do think if you go look at my website, you'll see I take strong stances very openly.
As I said, born, bred, and raised in Bridgeport, 65 years. I've seen this community change in every which way possible. The demographics changing from one block to another. But you know what? I'll tell you something. People say racism. I say we don't have any. We don't have racism in Bridgeport, Chinatown, McKinley Park. I don't see that. We all respect each other. We all know how to say hello, good morning, and we all care about each other, no matter which way it looks. Media says racism. I say no, not here. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. But I'll tell you, I had 12 years of experience working for the Chicago Police Department as a bilingual outreach individual, working in many different challenging economically challenged places. I've achieved many awards for my progress in leadership in bringing programs that actually work, because as every community is different.
Thank you. I'm also born and raised in this community. I've been here my entire life. My father was born here. I care deeply about what happens in this community and serving every single resident, and that's what I commit to every single day. I've spent my entire career in the service of others, and that has not stopped with this position that I've taken. And I take very seriously that nobody in this room got to choose me to be their alderman. But what you've gotten is a glimpse for the last 9 or 10 months about the type of alderman that I can be and then what I have done. So I hope that you judge me on my actions. I've been committed to transparency because you didn't get to choose me. I have published a weekly newsletter, and a newsletter doesn't sound so great until you realize that there's been no communication like this in years. I'm transparent. I'm committed to listening to every single person in this ward and addressing and making sure that every single voice is heard. Thank you.
As a CPS civics teacher, I'm all about good government. I believe in improving public safety and helping overburden taxpayers. I'm not afraid to call out bad decisions. We're talking about the newsletter. You're just reporting things. You're not being proactive and asking us. I am someone that's going to be inclusive, and before taking important decisions that affect us 35 years into the future, I want to make sure that the community knows what's happening and we have approval. I am not about being a follower. I'm about being a leader. Let's just call it the way it was. If this current alderman wasn't connected and if she didn't have the type of alliances that she has, she wouldn't be where she's at. We have an opportunity to elect someone. Let's elect someone that is not a follower, that is a leader, and let's elect somebody that is going to represent us all. Thank you.
My diverse background has taught me a great deal about people and their need for good, honest government. I have a vision for the 11th Ward. I believe with the right leadership, the 11th Ward can be the best ward in Chicago. I put together a 10-point plan. And if elected, I will follow that plan and make the 11th Ward the best ward to raise your family, the best ward to live. It will be great for everyone. And also, I will have full transparency. I will show you a plan. Right now, there is no plan out there for the future of the 11th Ward. None. Other than mine.
I'm just a regular neighborhood guy. That's who I am. I don't have any connections. I don't have any power in any way. I just go to work every day. I put my uniform on and do the best I can. And that's all I do. And that's all I care about is my community. That's what I've spent my time in, where I have the passion for. And that's why I'm running. And my perspective of reaching out and talking to anyone I encounter just to learn something about them, what they care about. And I'll have a beer with anybody. That's my I don't talk to people because I believe I'll get something from them. I learn from everyone I encounter throughout my time on this earth. And I believe by working together, we will have a better tomorrow, but we have to work together. I don't have any other agenda but to the betterment of our community. And that's it. That's how I'm going to frame every decision. Me as a firefighter, we're here to fix problems. And I'm going to take that attitude with the aldermanic seat as well. Solve the problems. That's what we're here for. No more BS. Let's go. Let's get it done.
We will conclude with a couple audience questions. The first one will be for all candidates. Each one will get 90 seconds, and we'll start with you, Don, and go in this direction. The city of Chicago is known for corrupt politicians. How will you assure to your constituents that you will not be corrupt like others?
Nothing I've ever done in my life has been that. I've always maintained my integrity and my honesty. That's all I have in this world. My name and my integrity. That's it. I'm not here doing this for fame. I'm not doing this for title. I'm doing it because I think we could do better. And I will not let special interests control me. I'm not going to be a puppet to anybody. I'll answer to the people. We'll let the people decide this election instead of just the handful, the few. But that isn't dependent on the people to do that. This is our constitutional democratic right to vote. And we need to increase our voting to pick better leaders at the end of the day, or we'll continue to have this. And this city is known for this worldwide. And I want to lay down foundation to where the next person would always have to carry on that vision of integrity and honesty. Thank you.
I will serve the people of the 11th Ward, not lobbyists, not special interest, and not big donors. And I ask all the candidates up here today, please raise your hand if you will not take any money from lobbyists, special interest, or big donors. Big donor is like 10,000 bucks or more or something like that, you know? So I'm the only candidate in this race. Well, I correct that. In my campaign, I have not accepted any money from lobbyists or special interest. I don't even want to create an appearance of impropriety. I think that's what the 11th Ward needs.
I got it. I got mine. Thank you. My mantra is end corruption, help taxpayers. If we cannot have a government that is a good government that serves the people, we will continue to have a Chicago that is corrupt. We cannot have people be put in positions because of who they know. We cannot have people put in powerful and influential positions without listening to the residents first. We need to be transparent. We need to have tougher ethics laws. We need to make sure that we don't always follow what Mayor Lightfoot is proposing. We're not always follow what certain powerful lobbyists or other people that traditionally have controlled what happens in our ward. We need to have an alderman that stands with the people first and not with connected political insiders. Let's just say it like it is. The last alderman that we had has had trouble and is no longer with us because of this same topic. We need to make sure that we have an alderman that we can trust. Who can you trust? Somebody that is not connected, somebody that doesn't have the type of juice that other people in this room have. And I'll tell you, I am about good government. I teach civics. I live it. I continuously write to both the Chicago Sun-Times and the Tribune to call out people. And I am going to call out people once I'm in office, and that will lead to better services. It's going to lead to better 11th Ward. Thank you.
I'm the only candidate running in this race that actually has a track record that you can hold me accountable for. You can look at my voting record. If you've called our office and asked a question, it's been transparently answered. If you have a question, it gets answered. We've displayed all of the rationale for my votes that I've taken, and I've explained those in this newsletter. Make fun of the newsletter if you want. This has never been done in this ward. And the number of people that I talk to, as I'm out there, and I am out there talking to people every day, listening to their concerns, listening to what they are worried about, and following through as a leader in this ward and working together to bring people together. And we do have to fight corruption, and I'm committed to that level of transparency. Taking this role and accepting this appointment, the decision to throw my hat in the ring was not an easy one. And it was one that a lot of people didn't understand, and maybe some of you don't either. The only reason that I'm in this job is to do good by this community. There's no other agenda. Thank you.
Wow. All I can tell you about myself is that it wasn't easy growing up here. And I have never in my life taken a dime that I didn't earn. I've worked one full-time job and two part-time jobs to see my children both through private school as a single mother. Again, not easy. I think most of us can connect with that. I am a regular Joe, just like you and everyone else here, just trying to make a living. But now, you know what? I don't owe anybody anything. My children are grown and gone. And I would love to give back to my community. Not that I don't, because I'm all over the place. And I like to bring joy to people. But I also like educating, mentoring, and showing our future, our children, how to move forward. And how to move forward, we need to remove the corruption that has always tainted our 11th Ward. So we have an opportunity for a fresh start. Let's take it.
There's a website called IllinoisSunshine.com. You can feel free to take a look at all of my donations. I don't accept donations from real estate developers. I don't take corporate cash. Every single dollar of the $75,000 plus that we've raised for this campaign has come from individual people that believe in it and believe in the things that we stand for and want to see some changes in our community. I don't have political ties. I've dedicated my life to public service. I believe that we need progressive change in this community. We've had the topic of racism come up. And I think in order to learn and grow, you have to admit you have a problem. And I think to say that there's no racism in this ward it's just objectively not true. We still struggle with these things today, like the Black-owned businesses that have been vandalized recently. I am willing to stand up, say what needs to be said. I think it's clear that the only thing I care about is being a dedicated civil servant. I spend my time reading about policies and making sure I'm very well informed and going out and talking to people on the doors. What I care about is making them happy, not, big developers or anything like that. All I care about is making things better for the people that live in this ward.
Our fingerprints, my family's fingerprints, are on every square inch of this ward. My family's foundation was built upon pillars, values that we hold very close to our hearts. We're talking about over 100 years of Sherivinos that have blessed this 11th Ward. You will not hear a bad thing about any of us My sister has been a park supervisor for over 30 years. I've been serving and protecting, speaking of public service, in some of the most violent, traumatic areas of this city throughout my career. For nearly 30 years, 3 decades. We stand upon values such as honesty, integrity, a high standard of ethics. In my 30 years as a Chicago policeman, there is not one blemish in my file. We call it a jacket. There's not one. You won't find any. If you ask someone, you won't find any. They're going to talk about that integrity. They're going to talk about push T, passion, unity, servanthood, humility, and thankfulness. Those are pillars that we live by and that you will get.
Thank you. This next and final audience question, you will each get that 60 seconds to respond. We'll start with Anthony and go in my direction. Tell us something about yourself that we would be surprised by. And I'll give you a moment to think about it. I just want to say we appreciate all the audience submissions that came in. We did receive more than 2 questions. Some of them we didn't choose because they have been answered. Others, we are running against some time constraints. However, we do encourage you to stay engaged. Keep asking the questions. You may have the opportunity tonight to meet and ask questions to the candidates. If not tonight, then do contact them and ask your candidates your questions. Tony?
The first thing that comes to mind, and plus I'm a coach. I like to walk and talk. So this has been rough all night, just sitting here. I want to jump out there. Anyway, before we came here, you know, the nerves were going. I felt like it was game day. I felt like I was in the NCAA tournament because that's where I come from. Maybe you might be surprised about that. I played for a Division I basketball team, Wisconsin Green Bay. But before we came here, I was trying to go through some of my pregame rituals that I used to do just to knock it out. And my daughter was running around the house, and my wife could attest. And she was singing as loud as she can. And that's what we do. You might be surprised, but I'm in the senior groups visiting the seniors, and we're stepping, we're dancing. They're teaching me to swing, and I love it. And I love singing with them, and I love having fun with them. And I twirl them, and I twist them, and I dip them, and we have a good time. And I do it at home too. We have dance parties during COVID, move the table, do the nay-nay and all the new dances, and embarrass my kids on TikTok. And that's me. Thank you.
This is the hardest question I've had all night. As someone running for office, I have made everything about myself extremely public. So it's hard to think of something that I haven't already talked about. I guess, you know, that also could maybe be politically relevant. But I guess I'll throw that out the window and just be personable and say, you know, I love metal music. I'm a big rock music fan. I like to go to shows at Reggie's and Cobra Lounge. A lot of people might not expect that out of me. I don't really dress the part. I am wearing some black boots, but other than that, you know, I do love just the intensity of that music. I also like to play games like Dungeons and Dragons, so I'm a little bit nerdy as well. I also do enjoy biking. There was a question earlier about who else has campaigned on a bike. We actually did have a Bike the Ward of event, and we had to cancel it once due to weather. And then we rescheduled it. And then that day it was like 13 degrees, which of course then spring came back after that. But yeah, that's just a few things.
She's right. This is the toughest question all night. I think during the whole time. But anyway, I would have to say my enjoyment comes from decorating the Chicago Police Departments for the holidays. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to go and see the decorations for Christmas for the officers, because obviously they get canceled. They're not with their families, and it gives me joy to bring them joy. And the other, let's see, the other is I'm a big, huge dog person. I mean, when I was working for CAPS, I rescued 6 dogs from the street at one time and I kept them all. I couldn't give them up. So what happened after that? I started writing children's books on environmental and humanitarian responsibilities, which will come out for next Christmas, and it benefits service dogs. The last and final thing I will tell you about me.
Something about me that may be surprising. It won't be surprising to the people that know me. But the thing that I'd like to share with you tonight is one of my absolute favorite pastimes. And that is on the occasion when I actually get up early enough to go to church on Sunday with my mother. I take her and my aunt and their 85-year-old friend, Kat, who was the first person to encourage me to take this position. And I drive them around the city to go to brunch. Now, this may not sound very exciting, but let me tell you, we have our adventures and I love doing it. I love doing it because it's time with my mom, it's time with my aunt, and it brings joy to the people that I'm driving around. My mother doesn't drive, but we get so much joy out of food. And we are a family that shows all of our love through food. So if I've cooked for you, you know how much I love you. There's my camping crew over here. And the people that work with me in the office too. That is my love language. So I hope to continue to do that. Thank you.
It won't surprise you that I'm not as tall as Anthony, but I do coach basketball. I love coaching basketball, and I'm a competitor. And I've always been the underdog, and my teams have always been the underdog. So if you've ever felt like you're an underdog, that's what we got going on. I can empathize with me. I'm also a proud member of the Knights of Columbus. I take a lot of pride in being a man of faith. I think that's what drives everything that I do. We talk about corruption. We talk about all these other topics. If you have a person that I think is guided by the right things, I think you're going to have a good public servant. Last thing that I'll say is I love languages, and I speak Italian. And so I'll leave you with this. Un piacere. Grazie per tutti and insieme.
Some of you may be surprised that I played professional hockey. I started my high school years, of course I dropped out of high school, skating on the lagoon at McKinley Park. And by the time I would have reached like graduated time, I wasn't in high school, I signed a professional hockey contract. So I thought that was pretty good. And I think I know I'm the only candidate in this race that has 7 broken noses and over 100 stitches in their face. So if you're looking for that person who's the fighter, I'm the guy. Whatever, right? Would you guys agree? Yeah, yeah, right. I'm not afraid to go in the corner or drop the gloves. That's just who I am. I don't care who you are. I also like to do a lot of charity work, and something that brings tears to my eyes is skating with our country's heroes. And I'm not talking about sports stars or celebrities. I'm talking about the people who gave us our freedom. The United States Wounded Warriors.
What don't people know about me? There's a lot, actually, because I didn't graduate high school as well. I was a GD graduate. I don't know. My mother is here today, and I caused her so much stress in those early years. I'm a headbanger. I like Metallica. You know, so I caused my mother so much stress over those years. And now when she looks at it now and looks at me and she's like, hey, you didn't turn out too bad. You know, I've been a 20-year firefighter. I mean, I care about my family and my friends and my community. And that's pretty much what I do. Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience members. This concludes our 11th Ward Candidate Forum. Please remember to vote. February 28th is Election Day. Early voting started today. You can pick up a copy of our candidate questionnaire and ballot guide over at the back. They can also be found on the CBCAC website. There is also a mayoral candidate forum coming up on February 6th. CBCAC will have buses going from Haynes Elementary to the forum. Please see the table at the back to sign up. Thank you. You need to return that device at the back.